Confrontation is a battlefield where most people lose control and lose everything. But what if the true power isn't in anger or shouting, but in staying calm when chaos erupts? Machiavelli, the master of strategy and power, revealed a hidden secret. Calmness is the ultimate weapon in any conflict. In this video, you'll discover how mastering your emotions, just like Machiavelli taught, turns tension into control and fear into strength. Ready to transform every confrontation into your advantage. Stay calm and watch how power shifts in your favor. Have you ever walked away from a confrontation thinking, "I should have said this," or worse, feeling humiliated for reacting too fast? Today, we end that. No more losing control, no more falling into emotional traps. This is how Machiavellian thinkers win before a single word is even spoken. Let me give you a truth. Few men have the spine to admit. In confrontation, it ain't truth that wins. It's not facts, not righteousness, not even force. What wins is perception. And the man who controls perception controls the outcome. That's why the calm man is feared, and the loud man, he's just heard. The second you raise your voice, clench your jaw, or let the smallest twitch give you away, you've already exposed something far more dangerous than weakness. You've shown you're reacting, not leading. And in the world of power, reaction is submission. Think, ever seen two men argue? One's flailing, breathing heavy, spilling emotions into the air, like a drunk spills wine on silk, and the other, still, unmoved, watching. When he speaks, he uses clipped, precise, calculated words. Now you tell me, which one looked like power? Which one owned the room? Control. Even if the angry one was right, he looked weak, because he let the other man decide how he felt. That is what Machiavelli understood centuries ago. Power is performance and calmness. It's one of its greatest illusions. Appear calm, even when you're not, and the world will believe you're strong. Stand unshaken, and they'll think you've seen worse, survived more, bowed to no one. There is no command in chaos, no leadership in loudness, only the illusion of strength, a hollow strength that shatters the second it's tested. Real control is quiet. It's in the breath you don't take, the insult you don't respond to, the twitch you suppress, the silence between your words. And when you master that silence, you don't dominate the room, you bend it with tension, because people don't fear what they hear, they fear what they can't read. They fear unpredictability. And nothing is more unpredictable than a man who doesn't react. Let your opponent shout. Let him tremble with rage. Let him turn the air to fire. You turn to ice. The colder you appear, the more desperate they become to crack that stillness. Every word they spit, every insult, every outburst, they're not controlling you, they're exposing themselves. What they don't grasp is, you've already won, because the room's perception has shifted, not in your favor because you're right, but because you're untouchable. You've claimed the high ground, not by being better, but by looking like nothing could touch you. Remember, the battlefield of confrontation isn't won with arguments. It's won in the first 3 seconds, when they see you. Shoulders tense, hands fidget, voice spike, each one a betrayal. Each one says, "I'm not sure of myself." And the man who's not sure is the man who loses. Control isn't words, it's presence. It's in your stillness, your steady tone, that pause before you answer. Not because you don't know what to say, but because you decide when to speak. And that pause makes them lean in, forces their minds to fill the silence, with fear, with stories, with doubt. And those assumptions, they're always more powerful than anything you could have said. Machiavelli would say, the prince must never reveal the chaos in his court. He must rule with the appearance of serenity, Because perception isn't just part of power, it is power. The calm face hides the fire. But to the world, only the face matters. And when your enemies see calm, they don't think you're unaffected. They think you're unbeatable. Control perception, and you control the narrative. And truth. Truth becomes irrelevant. Only belief remains. So next time you walk into confrontation, don't prepare arguments. Prepare your state, your breath, your posture, your gaze. Because if you can hold your calm while others crumble, then nothing else matters. The room will feel your authority. They won't know why. They'll just sense it. And that is power. Emotion is the leash by which most men are dragged. It tugs at their dignity, yanks their pride, parades them like jesters before they even know they're on stage. In confrontation, emotion is not your ally, it's your executioner. And if you haven't yet learned to sever it, you have no place in the game of power. There's a reason the manipulator always strikes first, not with logic, but with provocation. He wants you to feel, to burn, to twitch, to react. Because the second you become emotional, you stop thinking. Logic breaks. Strategy collapses. You become a servant to your rage, your fear, your pride, and he becomes your puppeteer. The Machiavellian mind doesn't fear confrontation. It welcomes it, but only on its terms, without emotion, without haste, with surgical stillness. The calmest man in the room, he isn't calm because he lacks emotion. He's calm because he's caged it. He feels everything but uses nothing. To detach from emotion isn't to be cold, it's to become selective. You don't destroy your feelings, you delay them. You postpone them like a king postpones a hanging. Not today, not here, not until I've won. When someone insults you in confrontation, your instinct will scream to strike back, to defend ego, to reclaim dignity. But that instinct, it's not strength, it's programming. The same script every weak man follows. And patterns are predictable. Patterns are exploitable. But when you detach, you change the game. You don't react to provocation. You observe it. You don't ask, how dare he say this to me? No, you ask, why this insult? What does he think I fear? Because the insult isn't the weapon, it's the map. The opponent who provokes you. He's showing you his insecurity. He attacks what he believes matters to you. So when you don't react, when you just look at him as if he's boring, as if his words don't even warrant analysis, you rob him of everything he thought he held. And suddenly, he's the one exposed. There's a kind of silence that makes men sweat. It's not polite, it's not passive, it's psychological warfare. It's the silence of a man who sees the game and chooses not to play. When you detach from emotion, your words become weapons. Every phrase lands, heavier, every pause charged. People start to listen, not because you're louder, but because they know you're not speaking from feeling, you're speaking from strategy, and strategy terrifies them. Emotional men, they overtalk, they overshare, they interrupt, they justify. But the detached man, he speaks only when the moment demands it. He chooses his words like a hunter lays traps, with intent. He says just enough to shift the balance. And then, he lets the silence finish the job. Control doesn't need a raised voice. It needs restraint. If you can train yourself to stay neutral, utterly neutral, while someone tries to provoke you, you start to own them psychologically. They don't understand why you won't react, so they escalate, they stretch too far, and in that overreach, they lose. Whether it's a courtroom, a negotiation, or a personal argument, emotion will try to hijack you. But if you've prepared, if you've already decided that nothing they say will reach your nerves, then you'll remain untouchable. You'll begin to notice the things others miss, the tremble in their lip, the twitch in posture, the desperation in their eyes when their insult fails. These are the signs of your victory. Not applause, not dominance, but internal collapse. They'll try to make you feel, because that's how they win. They want to drag you into their storm, where confusion reigns. But if you stay still, if you refuse the emotional bait, they'll burn themselves out, trying to shake you. It is not your job to prove a point. It is not your role to explain your piece. Your power lies in staying unmoved. The more they rage, the more they look like a spectacle, and the more silent you become, the more everyone listens. Because now, they know when you do speak, you didn't do it to vent emotion. You spoke to end the game. There is a kind of power that doesn't shout, doesn't argue, doesn't explain. It waits, watches, withholds. That power is silence. In a world obsessed with being heard, the one who chooses not to speak becomes the most unpredictable force in the room, because silence is not absence. It's not surrender. Silence is pressure, and pressure crushes more egos than any insult ever could. When a man speaks, he gives himself away, his rhythm, his insecurities, his desperation to be understood. They bleed through his voice. But the man who remains silent, he reveals nothing. And in that nothing, others see everything. You were taught silence is weakness, that if you don't respond, you're backing down, that if you don't argue, you've lost. But that is the lie they feed to the impulsive, to the reactive, to the ones who easily pulled into every verbal skirmish. Why? Because silence demands what few truly possess: restraint, self-command, psychological patience. Understand this. Silence is the most discomforting mirror. When you speak, you let the tension out. You relieve the room. But when you remain silent, you trap the tension. You hold it hostage. And suddenly, people begin to project. They pour their fears into that silence. They doubt. They guess. And that is where your influence begins. Say someone insults you in public. If you snap back, defend yourself. Explain yourself. You've walked right into their trap. You've entered their frame. But if you pause, just look at them, say nothing, you've just shattered their expectation. Now they're left wondering, why didn't he respond? Is he not hurt? Or is he planning something worse? That gap, the space between their attack and your silence, it becomes a battlefield of the mind. And you are winning, not with words, but with uncertainty. Most people fear silence because they don't understand it. It makes them feel unseen, unacknowledged, and that fear forces them to fill it with more words, more weakness, more desperate attempts to provoke you. Let them. Every time they speak, they unravel. Every sentence, more revealing, more pathetic. Meanwhile, you stay still, not because you're afraid, but because you're measuring. Silence forces people to show their hand. It's a form of interrogation. You say nothing, and they tell you everything. Their emotion, their strategy, their limits. If you can hold your silence long enough, the truth comes pouring out, without you ever having to ask. Because people don't speak to inform you, they speak to ease themselves, and they reveal more when you're quiet than when you're loud. The Machiavellian man knows this. He uses silence to punish, to dominate, to confuse. He doesn't walk into confrontation looking to argue. He walks in to unsettle. He speaks little, waits longer, and lets others talk themselves into submission. Because the more they speak, the more power he quietly gathers. But silence isn't just for direct confrontation. It's lethal in negotiation, in manipulation, in relationships, in war. He who controls the silence controls the tempo, and he who controls tempo controls perception. Say too much, You look nervous. Say nothing, and you force them to question your strength. Think of generals. Think of kings, interrogators, masters of power. They don't waste words. They don't explain. They rule the space between words. They speak slowly, when they speak at all. And when they go silent, the room tightens. People lean in, minds race. Because silence breeds imagination. And imagination, when left unchecked, it becomes fear. People are terrified, not of what's said, but of what they can't hear. They're terrified of what you might be thinking, because silence forces them to imagine the worst. And suddenly, your presence grows. You're no longer just a man. You become a question, one no one can answer. That is how silence becomes a weapon. It doesn't cut, it strangles, slowly, subtly, without leaving a single mark. It chips away at your enemy's confidence, makes them second-guess every word, forces them to fill the void with mistakes, while you remain calm, composed, calculating. There is nothing accidental about this. It's control, it's dominance, a mental chokehold that only the truly disciplined can apply, because anyone can talk, but only the powerful can wait. Every confrontation is a war for control, not of fists, but of meaning. It's not about who shouts louder, or who throws the sharper insult, or who walks away first. It's about who decides what the confrontation is about, because he who defines the conflict owns it. And once you own the frame, you can bend the outcome to your will without ever appearing to force it. The ordinary man, he walks in, reacting to accusations. He explains, he defends, he redirects. But the moment he does that, he's already lost the high ground. He's accepted the enemy's terms. He's fighting on borrowed terrain, under borrowed rules. And the man who fights inside another's frame has already surrendered. But the Machiavellian mind, it does not wait to be told what the fight is about. It declares it. It sets the tone, the stakes, the language, the limits. Before a single word is spoken, the outcome is already being written. Because when you influence how the conflict is perceived, you no longer need to win with facts or with emotion. You win with positioning. Imagine this: someone confronts you, their voice heavy with accusation. They want you defensive. They want you explaining. But instead, you respond with a question, not for clarity, but to reposition the fight. You shift the frame from accusation to curiosity, from threat to confusion. Now they're not attacking a target, they're defending their assumption. And without realizing it, the confrontation is now yours. Control the frame, and you control what matters. You can turn a small insult into treason, or a grave offense into a passing mistake. You can shift from suspect to victim, from victim to leader, from bystander to authority, not through truth, not through apology, through narrative. This is the true battlefield. Not the words themselves, but the invisible structure that gives those words their weight, because it's not what is said that matters. It's what's assumed beneath that counts. If you let others build that structure, you'll always be scrambling to catch up. But if you build it yourself, if you set the definitions before the debate begins, you'll never scramble, you'll only need to stand. Framing is not denying reality, it's choosing which parts deserve the spotlight. When someone confronts you, they want to trap you in their version of truth. But when you shift the frame, you redirect the spotlight. You show them a new angle, a different narrative, a new hierarchy of importance. Most people, once redirected, never return to their original path. They follow the light. They follow your lead. Even silence, when framed right, becomes dominance. If you say nothing, and they think you're afraid, you've lost the frame. But if you say nothing, and they believe you're judging, waiting, calculating. They crumble under pressure, because now their words bounce off a wall they don't understand. You've defined the silence, not as weakness, but as control, and they're reacting to your frame, not their own. Framing also decides who the audience sympathizes with. It can make aggression seem righteous, or righteousness appear weak. You can present yourself as the misunderstood thinker, the calm strategist, the wrongly accused, the one who sees further than the rest. And if you do this early, before the heat rises, then every word after is filtered through your version of truth. In negotiation, in argument, even in deep conflict, this rule never changes. The first to define the game changes the game. If you let yourself be defined, you are reduced. But if you define yourself and the meaning of the moment, others begin to orbit around you. Not because you've proven yourself, but because you've framed yourself. The strong do not fight every battle. They redefine the battlefield. They force others to step onto their terrain. And the moment the opponent does, even one step, they start to lose control. Because now, they're reacting, adjusting, stumbling to fit a reality they did not create. That's why the Machiavellian mind moves first. Not physically, not verbally, but mentally. It anticipates how the other will interpret the moment, then twists the lens. It does not wait to be accused. It accuses first. It does not wait to be challenged. It questions first, and when forced to respond, it doesn't respond to the accusation. It responds to the frame itself. It dismantles the foundation before even touching the surface. They will come at you with noise, with fire, with provocation, hoping to drag you into chaos. But the man who stands still amidst the storm rewrites the outcome. He does not panic. He does not react. He orchestrates. When you master perception, they see what you want them to see. When you detach from emotion, they feel the sting of your words far deeper than any scream ever could. When you hold your silence, they beg for your reaction, only to drown in their own noise. And when you frame the confrontation itself, you don't just survive, you shape it. This is how power moves, not through force, but through composure, not through chaos, but through control, not through volume, but through strategy. Stay calm, not because it is noble, but because it is lethal. Let others burn in the fire they light for you. You become the shadow behind the throne, the stillness in the storm. So the next time you're provoked, pause, not because you're weak, but because you understand what Machiavelli understood. That power is not in reaction, but in restraint. That those who lose control lose influence, and those who keep their composure control the game. The world doesn't belong to the loudest. It belongs to the most calculated, the one who can look chaos in the face and not flinch, who can be surrounded by fire and not burn. You don't win by overpowering your enemy. You win by making them overplay their hand while you remain unmoved. Because true dominance isn't about crushing others, it's about becoming unshakable. And once you master that, no one can manipulate you, no one can provoke you, no one can use your emotions against you. You become untouchable. That is the Machiavellian calm. That is how power survives.